At midnight on September 26, 1983, an alarm sounds inside a Soviet nuclear command center. Satellite systems flash a single message: launch detected. 5 American nuclear missiles appear to be heading directly for Soviet territory. Military protocol dictates an immediate response. The operators are trained to report the detection and initiate a massive counterstrike. Within minutes, hundreds of missiles would be in the air, and the era of modern civilization would effectively end. But the duty officer, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, hesitates. He notices a logical flaw the computer isn't programmed to see. If the U.S. were starting a nuclear war, they would launch hundreds of missiles, not just 5. Petrov decides to ignore the system's confirmation of an attack and reports it as a false alarm. He was right. The radar system had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds for the thermal signature of a missile launch. Petrov's ability to question the system prevented a global catastrophe. This is metacognitive intelligence, the capacity to observe a system from the outside and identify its limitations. While Petrov recognized a flaw in a computer, most of us remain unaware of a much more pervasive system that governs our daily choices: the biological loops of the human brain. We experience the world as if we are recording it in real time, but neuroscience suggests the brain is actually a simulation engine. It doesn't passively observe reality, it predicts it. This hollow face illusion demonstrates the brain's preference for patterns over physical reality. Even when looking at the hollow back of a mask, your brain projects a normal outward face, because that is the pattern it has been trained to expect. This process is called predictive processing. Much like an AI model that predicts the next word in a sentence, the brain uses past data to guess what it should see or feel next. It only uses incoming sensory signals to check those guesses for errors. The brain prioritizes this efficiency because it consumes less energy than processing every detail from scratch. It builds automated loops, habits, and reactions that run without conscious effort. Research from Duke University suggests that nearly 45% of our daily behavior is driven by these automated patterns. This energy-saving mechanism means that many of our reactions are dictated by internal models rather than external facts. When the brain prioritizes its existing model over new information, our behavior becomes a repeating cycle of these pre-programmed loops. Neurologically, identity functions as the brain's master structural filter. It is the central predictive model that determines which behavior loops are allowed to operate and how we interpret the world around us. To see this filter in action, consider a study where participants were asked to analyze a dataset. When the numbers were used to measure the effectiveness of a skin cream, participants with strong math skills correctly interpreted the statistics and identified the positive trend. However, when the exact same numbers were relabeled to track the effectiveness of gun control, those same math experts began making errors. When the data threatened their political identity, their brain's default mode network distorted the logical analysis to protect their existing worldview. Raw intelligence was used not to find the truth, but to defend the identity. A high IQ does not prevent these errors. Without metacognition, intelligence often becomes a tool for rationalizing a static identity, even when that identity no longer aligns with reality. The true function of intelligence is visible in the Great Oxidation Event 2.4 billion years ago. Oxygen was a toxic byproduct that wiped out most existing life on Earth. Our ancestors survived because they were able to adapt to this new, poisonous environment. They evolved the biological capacity to turn that toxin into an energy source. This demonstrates the highest form of intelligence, the ability to override a static internal system to meet a new external reality. It is the transition from a rigid model to an adaptive one. In a world where environments shift rapidly, a fluid identity is more effective than a rigid one. Survival depends on the ability to update the simulation when it no longer fits the facts. Developing this adaptive capacity begins with Bayesian thinking. This involves treating your beliefs as probabilities rather than certainties. When you encounter new evidence, you treat it as a data point to update your internal model rather than a threat to your identity. The second step is to engineer your social environment. Identity is reinforced by the people and digital spaces we inhabit. By surrounding yourself with different perspectives and physical environments, you make it easier for the brain to normalize new behavior loops. Finally, use repetitive action to rebuild your self-perception. Research suggests we infer our identity by observing our own behavior. By tracking daily evidence of a desired trait, such as learning or consistency, you provide the brain with the data it needs to update its master model. True intelligence isn't found in what we already know. It is found in the speed at which we can reevaluate our own internal systems when the world around us changes.